Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to the Grey Zone with Ali Manzoor, a show where we challenge assumptions, stereotypes, viewpoints on various complex issues, and hopefully foster critical thinking. Recently, we had the Islamabad talks, and I thought let's do a show to review 100 years of history of some of the major milestones and agreements of peace deals and negotiations that have taken place around the world. So let's jump into the show. First off, the Treaty of Versailles, 1919, Paris, France. The background: World War I from 1914 to 1918. The participants in this peace talk were Allied powers, which was UK, France, USA, and others, and Germany. The core issues were ending World War I. The agreement reached was Germany accepted war guilt, paid repatriations around 132 billion gold marks or 33 billion US dollars at that time, military was reduced, and territories were lost. Let us review some of the territories that Germany lost. Alsace-Lorraine was returned to France. Eupen-Malmedy was given to Belgium. West Prussia and Posen were given to Poland. Danzig was made a free city under the League of Nations. Saarbrücken was placed under the League of Nations, and France was given control for coal rights. All overseas colonies were taken and redistributed amongst the Allied powers, which was Britain, France, USA, and others. Munich Agreement 1938. The participants: Germany, UK, France, and Italy. The core issue: Germany demanded Sudetenland, which was Czechoslovakia border region, on grounds of ethnic Germans lived there and they were being denied rights and that there was oppression. The agreement reached. Sudetenland was given to Germany without war. Why Munich? Hitler, the then leader and Führer of Germany, felt that it gave him control even at a time of diplomacy having this in Munich. The formation of United Nations, 1945. The conflict that triggered it was the aftermath of World War II, which was from 1939 to 1945. The purpose? Promote international peace and security. The structure of the UN is there is a Security Council and a General Assembly. The goal? It's a platform for diplomacy and conflict resolution. Why New York? New York at that time was accessible to most countries by port, and John Rockefeller donated the land along the East River that is now the UN headquarters today. The Camp David Accords, 1978. The background: Anwar Sadat was president of Egypt and Jimmy Carter was president of USA. Menachem Begin was PM of Israel. Egypt had suffered heavily in 1967, known as the Six-Day War, and 1973, Yom Kippur, where Egypt attacked across the Suez Canal. The participants: Egypt, Israel, USA. The core issue: Sinai Peninsula, located west of the Suez Canal and south of the Red Sea area, was of geopolitical importance both militarily and trade-wise, was captured in 1967 by Israel. The agreement: Israel withdrew from Sinai. Egypt recognized Israel. Why Camp David? It was acceptable to both sides and it was a neutral diplomatic ground. Paris Peace Accords, 1973. The background: Vietnam War from 1955 to 1975. The participants: USA, North Vietnam, which was the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, South Vietnam, which was known as the Republic of Vietnam, and Viet Cong, which was the Provisional Revolutionary Government. The core issue was end Vietnam War and US withdrawal. The agreement reached. US troops withdrew, ceasefire declared, but another war started between the North and South of Vietnam soon after. Why Paris? Vietnam was a former French colony and French had been neutral in this war. Helsinki Accords, 1975. Took place in between the Cold War that was considered to be roughly between 1947 and 1991 when Soviet Union collapsed. Gerald Ford was president of USA. Leonid Brezhnev was secretary of USSR. Europe was represented by 35 countries. The participants: USA, USSR, and European states. The core issue was Cold War tensions, border issues, and human rights. The agreements reached. They recognized border, meaning no country will change the borders by force. Trade was increased. Human rights, freedom, and commitments were given. Why Helsinki? Finland was not part of NATO and had good relations with both USA, Europe, and USSR. Oslo Accords 1993. Israeli PM was Yitzhak Rabin. Yasser Arafat was leader of the Palestine Liberation Organization. The background. The first Intifada had begun between 1987 to 1993, which was a mass Palestinian uprising against Israeli control in the West Bank and Gaza. The participants: Israel, PLO, which was the Palestine Liberation Organization, and Norway as a mediator. The core issue: Palestinians demanded self-rule and end to Israeli occupation. The agreement: Palestinian Authority created but with limited autonomy. Why Oslo? Norway was trusted by both sides as a good mediator. Dayton Agreement 1995. The background: Bosnian War in former Yugoslavia from 1992 to 1995. The participants: Bosnia, Serbia, Croatia, with the USA as mediator. The core issues: ethnic war, territorial division issue with each side wanting land and no other ethnic group living there. The agreement reached: Bosnia split into two entities, Bosnia-Herzegovina and Republic of Srpska, but remained one country. Ceasefire was enforced. Why USA? Because both sides trusted USA to be the mediator. The Good Friday Agreement, Belfast 1998. The Troubles, which was from 1960s to 1998, a 30-year conflict within Northern Ireland of whether to stay in UK or to join Ireland. The participants: UK, Ireland, Northern Ireland parties. The core issue: sectarian conflict and governance. The agreement: power sharing government established between Unionists and Nationalists. Why Belfast? It was a center of conflict and also it was known for where the troubles started from. The Bonn Agreement 2001. The background: United States invasion of Afghanistan post 9/11, which revoked the Taliban government in Afghanistan. The participants: United States, Afghan factions, and the UN as a mediator. The core issues: post-Taliban government, different factions within Afghanistan were competing for power. The agreement: interim government form called the Afghan Interim Authority under Hamid Karzai and ministers from different factions. Why Bonn? Bonn was isolated, private, and trusted by all sides as a neutral territory. Sudan Peace Agreement, Nairobi, 2005. The background: the Second Sudanese Civil War between 1983 to 2005 between Northern Sudan, which was Arab Muslim-led government, and Southern Sudan, which was mostly Christians. Participants: Government of Sudan, which was from North, and the Sudan Peace Liberation Movement. It was mediated by the United Nations. The core issue: the fight over control of oil reserves, which was located in the south, and power for governance over Sudan. The agreement: power sharing and oil revenue to be split 50-50. Referendum was allowed for South Sudan, which later on led to the independence of South Sudan in 2011. Why Nairobi? Kenya was seen as a neutral and acceptable host to both sides. Colombia Peace, Cartagena, 2016. The background: 50 years of conflict between 1960s and 2016 in Colombia, between FARC, which was a revolutionary army of Colombia, the government, right-wing paramilitary groups, as well as drug cartels. The participants: Colombian government, FARC, and the mediators were Norway and Cuba. The core issue: land inequality, which was, they argued that the poor areas were highly marginalized, political exclusion, and drug trade related violence. The agreement: FARC was disarmed and transitioned into a political party. Rural reforms were made and political inclusion was also done. Why Cartagena? Well, it's a historical city and the signing was called the White Signing Ceremony, symbolizing peace. The Doha Agreement 2020. The background: almost 20 years of war between United States and Taliban since 2001 invasion of Afghanistan in the post 9/11 scenario. The participants: USA, Taliban, and mediation was Qatar. The core issue: the war had become costly, long, and militarily inconclusive. The agreement: US exit timeline agreed. Taliban agreed not to allow any terrorist groups. Why Doha? Well, Taliban had an office in Doha since 2013 and US was also comfortable having this in Doha. Abraham Accords, White House 2020. The background. 1979, Egypt recognized Israel in the Camp David Accords. 1994, Jordan recognized Israel. However, from 1948 till 2020, most Arab countries did not recognize Israel. The participants, Israel, UAE, Bahrain, and the USA as a mediator. The agreement, full diplomatic normalization and cooperation in trade, security, and technology. Why the White House? The US President Donald Trump insisted that the White House has to be used as a signing venue for this accord. So that was a roundup of the major milestone and peace talks in the last 100 years. Let us pray and hope that the Islamabad talks and the future talks as well yield positive fruit, and that there is no further war and no need for such treaties or peace talks in the future. That was it for the Grey Zone with Ali Manzoor this week. We'll be back next week with another episode. So until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and keep asking questions, because between the black and the white lies the grey.